Ladies and gentlemen, the next session is plenary lecture sessions. For this session, we have three speakers, Prof. Ismail, Prof. George Gu Chiang Chen, Prof. Siram Ramakrishna. The plenary lecture session will be moderated by Dr. Yundan Wulansa. Please allow me to read a brief profile of Dr. Yundan Wulansa. Dr. Yundan Wulansa earned his bachelor degree, Sarjana Teknik, in chemical engineering in 2001. After 2 years working in a company, he decided to study Master of Science, MSc, at Aachen, Germany, and start join Department of Mechanical Engineering Universitas Indonesia in 2006. In September 2008, he pursued to PhD program in Bioengineering at Piaggio Research Center, University of Pisa, Italy, as the outcome of EU Asia Link program. He went back to Universitas Indonesia on January 2012 after the completion of PhD program. Currently, he working in the Laboratory of Mechanical Design of Biomechanics at the department. He conducts research in field of bioengineering and technologies of locomotor tissue regenerations. Research interests, biomimetics, biomaterials, biosensing, biomechanics, locomotor tissue engineering. Please welcome Dr. Yundan Wulansa.
Thank you very much for very nice introductions. And ladies and gentlemen, again, thanks for still attending this today's presentations. And we do have the next is, could we have the titles? Excuse me. We have the next presenter will be held online presentations. I think I have to take off my mask, it's better. Yeah, Prof. Ismail. How are you, Prof. Ismail? Could you hear me clearly, Prof. Ismail?
Yes.
Okay. So before we
I can hear you.
Okay, so before we started, I would like to give a short introduction from Prof. Dr. Ismail Hadi Subroto Dilogo, that completed his general medical education in 1994 at the University of Indonesia, and then he completed his educations as a specialist in orthopedic surgery in 2003, and then doctoral program in 2007 at the same campus. And at this moment, Prof. Ismail Di Logo is the first orthopedic and traumatology specialist from the RSCM Indonesia for research stem cells. This research has been carried out since 2004, and then since 2010, RSCM has successfully handled cases of bone or orthopedics and other cases such as glaucoma, diabetes, heart disease, burns, and stroke using the stem cell therapy. His development on stem cell research also brought Prof. Ismail an award from the BPPT Innovation Award in 2018 for the innovations in the health sectors. So without further ado, I would love to Prof. Ismail to present his today's talk. Thank you very much. Please welcome Prof. Ismail. The time is yours. Prof. Ismail.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon to all faculty, committee, and all participants. Today we are going to discuss about stem cell and tissue engineering for bone and joint repair, restore, regenerate, and replace. First, impaired bone healing result in delay union and non-union. The cases are multifactorial, including alteration in blood flow, severe damage to the periosteum, bone loss, or inadequate stabilization. Current gold standard is the surgical stabilization and autologous bone grafting. However, the main limitation is reduced source of material for grafting. Even after technically successful autologous bone grafting, some complications may occur, such as persistent donor site pain is up to 49% of the patient, deformity, limited function. And therefore, alternative option such as autologous or allogenic MSC is one of the options to overcome this limitation. But first, us to get know better about the stem cell. Stem cells are blank cells that capable to divide and renew themselves for a long period of time. They have the potential to differentiate into specialized cell types. Based on its origin, stem cells are divided into embryonic and adult stem cell. Due to the ethical issues, embryonic stem cells are usually prohibited to use in the clinical setting. Adult stem cell divided into the hematopoietic and mesenchymal stem cell. Mesenchymal stem cell is a primitive cell with the ability to self-replicate and differentiate into muscle, bone, fat, and cartilage. Stem cell as therapeutic strategy approach using tissue engineering and cell-based therapy approach. In replacing the structures, we through the tissue engineering, and whenever to do the metabolism inside of the body or replace metabolism, we go through cell-based treatment. There are potential biological approaches in repairing, replacing, restoring, and regenerating damaged cell and tissues. A recent study by Galderisi et al. Showed that the number of the research in relation to muscle bone cartilage disease is getting more attention than ever. Based on the clinicaltrial.gov, there have been around 1,460 clinical trials along the world. Most of them are interventional studies in phase 1 and phase 2. This is the triad of a stem cell in the tissue engineering, It includes cell, scaffold, and signaling molecules with the appropriate environment and time. We can expect the regeneration of the bone. Challenge faced in the mesenchymal stem cell is the limited success for long-term engraftment of the emitter cells. The underlying hypothesis of the most MSc-based clinical trial are homing to injury site, differentiate into the cell to replace damaged cell and improve intrahepatic function. However, early research show that transplanted cells do not persist in the intended site with the inefficient differentiation. Yet, they result in a therapeutic function improvement. So, in this case, this gap can be explained by the paracrine effects of the MSC through the secretion of the paracrine factors. MSC secrete spectrum of paracrine in the form of the cytokine, growth factors, and extracellular vesicle. Stem cell, through secretion of their metabolites, communicate with the injured cell to become healthy functional cell. How about the clinical practice of the stem cell application in our institution? In our institution, stem cell research are divided within the two organizations. Stem cell engineering is focusing in vitro and animal study for the optimization study, and stem cell integrated service unit in the Cipto Mangunkusumo Hospital is focused in the translational and clinical trial. From best clinical practice, we believe the flow of the bedside to band and to bedside. We start the research identifying the problem in the clinical practice bedside. Then we do the research in the laboratory bands, and we apply it. We apply into translational and clinical application in bedside. Therefore, in Faculty Medicine of Universitas Indonesia, we conduct all steps from in vitro literature review first, in vitro study, animal study, up to the translational study, and then clinical trial, and finally is a routine clinical application. This is our existing facility. It is a CGMP standardized that located in Cipto Mangunkusumo Hospital that I mentioned to you earlier. For the research lab is located in Faculty of Medicine in IMERI, level floor H. This is our research to know that existence of mesenchymal stem cell inside of atrophic non-union. We found that MSC do exist in the site of atrophic non-union fractures and is still able to differentiate into osteogenic cell. How about their scaffold? In in vitro study, we found that MSC survive in hydroxyapatite sulfate and bovine hydroxyapatite, so the least toxic effects to red bone marrow MSC on the direct contact test and MTT assay. This is the example of our animal study analyzing MSC role in the treatment and reconstruction of fractures with the bone defects. It is shown that group that receive MSC show significantly greater callus thickness on weak 4, 8, and 12 weeks. From the 20X rabbits, there were randomly assigned those who treated with the MSC with the hydroxyapatite and had significantly thicker and mature callus on 8 weeks, follow up with the higher osteocyte index in the following weeks. Indonesia is as one of the low-middle income country that has high rate of the motor vehicle accident. Among them, we observe 5 until 10% get non-union and 27% fractures needed reconstruction surgery, which is difficult to manage and very challenging. And this is the diamond concept that introduced by Gionodis. It is explained that in order for bone to get good regeneration, it needs 4 pillars, namely osteogenic cell, osteoconductive, osteoinductive, and mechanical stability. Stem cell in this concept is playing role in the osteogenic cell pillars. This is our published research on mesenchymal stem cell implantation in the atrophic non-union of the long bone. Long bone non-union difficult to treat. We found that patients treated with a bone marrow mesenchymal stem cell achieve faster functional radiographic improvement than the control group. The control group is the bone graft plus hydroxyapatite. This is the one of the case. This patient is 23 years old, male, with heavy smoker, and also 6 years non-union. 6 years patient cannot walk independently. So after we treated with the bone marrow mesenchymal stem cell and hydroxyapatite, we can see the patient can walk in 6 months. There are already several studies about the use of MSC in the bone regenerative, especially in long bone defects, but most of the results are still in the research progress. Critical size bone defects, defined as the defect more than 2 times diameters of the long bone diaphysis, require complex surgery to treat. So in this case, we conducted a study involving at least 9 subjects treated with the autologous MSC, hydroxyapatite, and BMP2, along with the open reduction intervention of the internal physician, applying Gionodis diamond concept. Then we evaluated their functional outcome, radiological, and clinical evaluation. We harvested iliac bone marrow in order, for the bone marrow stromal stem cell derived mesenchymal stem cell. And to obtain the mesenchymal stem cell, we culture them for at least 3 weeks, up to 4 weeks. And finally, we use 50 million cell dose on patient. This is the implementation process. We combine it, the 50 million MSC, bone marrow derived, and 1.33 mil BMP2 with fill it in the 5 gram hydroxyapatite granule along with the implant physician. After 6 months, all the outcome, including visual analog scale, lower extremity functional score, defect volume, and radiological outcome using Tiedemann score, so significantly improved result. We have also published this research. We can see post-operatively most patients show adequate callus growth formation and consolidated. This is the one of the case, 32 years old male with 5 centimeters bone defects on tibia and fibula non-union. We can see along the follow-up up to the 18 month, he showed satisfactory callus growth. This the pictures. The patient can do the squatting, jumping, and perform lit running. As for Baltimore, here is one of our case of 8 years old male, old boy, with the osteofibrous dysplasia with 8 centimeters bone defects. Why bone defect? Because we have to resect the osteofibrous dysplasia. The bending, anterior bowing of the tibia, we resect the osteofibrous dysplasia and remove and created the defects, 8 centimeters. And then we apply Jokosarov external fixation for do the distracts and lengthens, lengthen because the patient is previously anterior bowing and shortening, and then the defect, we fill the defect implanted with the bone marrow mesenchymal stem cell and BMP2 and hydroxyapatite granule. This is the X-ray pictures. You can see pre-op, post-op, and in the 4-week, 8-week, and 12-week. This the follow-up from the perioperative up to the 40 weeks. We cannot adequate bone growth and consolidate it. This the pictures 1 week after we remove the Jokosarov external fixation. Patient can walk independently, though still so limping gait due to the because we just remove the Jokosarov external fixation. After 1 year and 9 months, patient show good clinical follow-up, no sign of infection, and no sign of the recidive of osteofibrous dysplasia with almost equal leg length. This patient can walk, jump, and downhill walk independently, and we believe is almost perfect gaits. And patient finally can get back to his hobby, which is playing soccer or football, and we have also published this case report. After we have researched autologous mesenchymal stem cell, we continue on using allogenic MSC. Allogenic MSC has more advantages such as no donor site morbidity and faster to prepare, ready to use. Allogenic MSC are safe to use since that they have the relatively low immune reaction due to the low expression of the SLE type 2 and do not elicit alloreactive lymphocyte proliferative response and modulate immune response, suppress T-cell proliferation, and avoid allogenic rejection. We start with isolating allogenic mesenchymal stem cell from the various source, including bone marrow, adipose tissue, and umbilical cord. Then we continue with the isolation and cultures. Afterward, we store them in cryopreservation. We knead them, we thaw and prepare them for around 4 until 5 days, and it can be ready for implantation. This is the pictures of the stem cell from day to day and week to week progress. After a while, the stem cell usually will be confluent in 3 weeks and ready to be implanted or stored. This is one of the case using allogenic MSC for the female 57 years old that have a motorcycle accident, and he has a fail of 5 attempted previous surgery and developed infected non-union of the femoral shaft with 12 centimeters bone defects due to the infected that bone. When first came, she mobilized using a wheelchair, and in this case we use the modified muscular techniques using autologous allogenic using the allogenic MSC using umbilical cord. We first debride them and found 12 centimeter bone defect, and then we insert nail spacers, and then after we remove the nail spacers, we implanted using UC, umbilical cord derived mesenchymal stem cell, as the osteonic cell, BMP2 as the osteoinductive, hydroxyapatite as scaffold, and plate fixation to ensure mechanical stability. Here the preoperative and postoperative radiological compression. Here the 3-month follow-ups, radiological show good callus for growth, no sign of infection, and patient can walk using walkers. Here the 6-month and 9-month follow-up, and at 6 months patient can walk with 1 crutch, and the 6-month patient can start working independently. At 11 months, patient can walk independently. We have also published this case report. And we have conducted a translational study using allogenic UC-MSC on critical size bone defect involving 7 subjects. We found satisfactory clinical functional outcome improvement in all subjects after the end of follow-up of period. This is the subject of the study. We can note in all patients that in 6-month follow-up, we can see good callus grow in the previous bone defects. And this is another case with a 64-year-old male with a 1 year's back pain. He was diagnosed with the multiple compression fractures of the thoracal 9, 11, and lumbar 2 up to the 4, till 4, with the autoimmune comorbid. On patient was performed vertebroplasty and kyphoplasty with the 3-time implantation by Dr. Rahim Salim. This is the case of Dr. Rahim Salim, the spine surgeon. On first and second implantation, 5 million UC-MIC was implanted in the intervertebral disc L3, L4, continue with the intravenously UC-MIC, and on the third implantation, 5 million UC-MIC was implanted on T9, 11, L3, and L4 intervertebral. Here the follow-up after the first, second, and third implantation, patient felt almost no pain and can walk freely. Even the hair is growing well. 62 years old with a 6-month back pain. After examination, she was diagnosed with a degenerative disc disease with a bulging disc and moderate canal stenosis. We performed intravenoral implantation of 5 million UC-MSC at the canal stenosis level bilaterally. And for the cartilage repairs, exogenous MSC can be implanted by surgical incision for the massive defects and intra-articularly injected for the small defects. So it means massive defect, we should approaching by tissue engineering approach, but for the small defect or osteoarthritis, we can use by cell-based treatment using intra-articular injection. MSC-based treatment impact on the several factors, including the increased chondrocyte chondrogenesis, and balance MMP and TIMP ratio on extracellular matrix, upregulate the immunosuppressive factors on immunity, increase mitochondrial membrane potential, promote cartilage regeneration, and through its paracrine effects. Here we are looking at the case of the severe osteoarthritis with the marked varus deformity. In this case, stem cell may not appropriate treatment to definitively treat this condition. So in severe valgus or varus and grade 4 osteoarthritis with the deformity and confirmed by radiography had severe osteoarthritis, the appropriate treatment is arthroplasty. However, arthroplasty has some limitation, including fear of a big operation, implant, and walking it independently, and limited low impact sport postoperatively. Some of the patient cannot do the attahiyat praying position, and looking at the rising primary total knee arthroplasty procedures on rising life expectancy, crucial development of new alternative treatment are needed. We conduct an open label single arm clinical trial using UCMSC for knee osteoarthritis. Patients were injected 3 times with the first week with the 1 week interval. In the first week, we inject 10 million UCMSC into ml of the secretome, with also added with the 2 ml of hyaluronic acid. The following weeks, in the following 2 weeks, patients were injected with the 2 ml hyaluronic acid weekly for 2 times, for another 2 times. We measure functional using visual analog scale, IKDC, and WOMAC, and radiological outcome using T2 map cardiograms. And including 57 knees, both patients were early is grade 1 and 2, and severe grade 3 and 4. Osteoarthritis show pain reduction in 6 and 12 months, with significantly increased functional outcome. However, there is no significant difference on the both group during 6 and 12 month follow-up. Here the example of the T2 maps cardiogram measurement we use. We note an important finding in the study that even in severe grade 4 osteoarthritis, patients still reported pain reduction and functional improvement. This can be explained by MSC repair effects through the paracrine effects that stimulate endogenous repair mechanism, and have the most important thing is anti-inflammatory effects, because we believe in osteoarthritis there is a novitis, so with the anti-inflammatory effects can improve or reducing the pain. Afterward, we continue to randomize control trial using 20x knees with the early osteoarthritis grade 1, 2, divided in 3 intervention group. First group were treated with the UCMSC and hyaluronic acid injection, and second with the UCMSC somatotropin with the hyaluronic acid injection, and the third group received hyaluronic acid only. General improvement were observed in all groups after 6 and 12 months. No significant difference between 3 groups in visual analog scale, IKDC, and WOMAC, and medial T2 improvement in the UCMSC group at the 12-month post-intervention, and therefore we conclude that UCMSC injection could improve knee function and cartilage profile in early osteoarthritis. This example of the autologous MSC utilization for the osteochondral bone defects Here is the 26 years old male with the grade 3 ICRS osteochondral lesion on the left femoral condyle and patella. And the preparation and cultures, and then we inject the stem cell intra-articularly. On the 6-month follow-up, we can see the osteochondral defect has been repaired. We can see from the MRI evaluation. And this 6 months after stem cell clinical follow-up, patient can walk and jump freely. And this patient actually is a tennis player. So after 6 months, the patient can return to sport, playing tennis. This is our experience in utilizing MSc implantation for the disc degradation for the spine that performing by Dr. Rayu Salim. So injection implantation is by injection through the disc, see, guided by the arm. So after we have sure that and confident that the needle is directed to the disc, and then we follow it with a UCMSC implantation. 68-year-old female with a 1 year's back pain. The pain was sharp and radiating to both legs. She was diagnosed with multiple disc degradation on L2 until S1. We perform UCMSC intraforaminal implantation on both sides of the degenerated intervertebral disc. As we can see, after second implantation, patient can walk freely with no pain. With all advantage of the MSc, it also some limitation. For example, high cost to maintain, difficult to store and reuse, and the transient survival after the transplantation. Secretum has several advantages, including manipulatable dosage and potency, and can be produced in large quantities, ready to use, cost efficient, lower immunogenicity, and easy to storage. Its therapeutic effect primarily pro-angiogenic, anti-fibrotics, anti-apoptotic, and also anti-inflammatory and immunomodulators. However, compared to MSc, secretum has several limitations such as slower inflammatory inhibitors, limited immunoregulators potency, and do not last as long as MSc, requiring higher repetition frequency. This is one of our case, 31 years old female with the 4-month right hip pain. She had also a history of the systemic lupus erythematosus 5 years ago, and consume of corticosteroid routinely. So we diagnosed in this case with a secondary hip osteoarthritis due to AVN, FICAT2 from SLE. And we perform core decompression, and sorry, this one is not FICAT2 but FICAT3, and derotation ostomy with the secretum implantation. Here the post-operative compression. Another AVN, AVN with also FICAT3. There is no history of trauma, no visible leg length discrepancy on physical examination. We diagnose this patient with the FICAT3 on the left hip and FICAT2 on the right hip. We perform derotation hip osteotomy or rib sliding hip screw and secretum application on the left hip. Here we can see the pictures pre and post. We do the derotation osteotomy, core decompression, and fill the core hole using by implanted of secretum. Inspired by the promising outcome of stem cell and secretum in promoting cartilage regression, exosome have been extensively investigated and identified as a promising therapy. Exosome has advantages including less rejection rates, no tumorogenicity, and potent paracrine function. This is the latest review about the recent progress of exosome on orthopedics. Exosome have been studied on remodeling, bone remodeling, cartilage degeneration, bone tumor, spinal cord injury, degenerative disc disease, femoral head necrosis, and skeletal muscle injury. Most of the research is still in preclinical stage. Here the latest systematic review by Federica et al. On exosome function in bone regeneration. Exosome has received growing interest and overall reported positive results. In vitro and in vivo studies show consistent results showing effects on several critical size bone defects by increasing bone regeneration, activation bone regeneration pathway, induction of vascularization, and modulation on inflammation. On cartilage regeneration, exosome has potency in immunomodulating, anti-apoptosis, increasing cell migration, matrix proliferation, and matrix synthesis. Here, finally, product of the metabolite and umbilical cord mesenchymal stem cell that we produce by RSCM, Faculty of Medicine of Indonesia, and Kimia Pharma. This is the collaboration study, collaboration product that we produce umbilical cord mesenchymal stem cell and the secretum. So the secretum either from adipose, bone marrow, or umbilical cord. As take-home message, mesenchymal stem cell implantation could accelerate the union of neglected, difficult to treat of the atrophic non-union long bone fractures. This represent of restore and repair. And MC could accelerate the production of collagen synthesized loss of extracellular matrix in the osteoarthritis. So it means restore and repair. And MC osteogenic capacity substitute the major amazing component of the critical size bone defect. So it means replace. And allogenic MSC could treat either non-union fractures, fracture with the bone defects, or osteoarthritis with no safety issues. So this means it's repair and replace. The use of mesenchymal stem cell in the case of bone defect and non-union improve clinical functional improvement and pain reduction. Stem cell now have also been registered on national guideline for medical services in bone defect and non-union fractures. Biological approach using MSC injection may suppress the synovial inflammation and repair the cartilage with its paracrine effects. Intra-articular injection of a UC-MSC could improve knee function and cartilage profile, especially in the early knee osteoarthritis. And MSC-derived secretum and exosome has a lot potential as therapeutic option in bone and joint with the increasing number of the research. Thank you for your attention. Wabillahi taufiq hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Prof. Ismail. Very nice presentations. And it's very clear, your message, that you already had applied the stem cells into the clinical, from the transitional to clinical. Even you also highlighted the drawbacks, and then you are moving up with the other products such as secretum and the exosomes. I think I personally is very very admiring of your works. So we still have 5 minutes, so 5 until 7 minutes. So probably we could have Q&A based on the sharing from the Prof. Ismail. If there is any questions, please raise your hand, or if there is input from the Zoom media, probably the committee would like to inform me. Are there any questions? Yeah. Okay. So we will wait. Yeah, Prof. Ismail. But we do have here several things that if you could to clarify, it was that I've seen that it's normally that you have kind of time limit of 5 until 6 months. So is there something specific about the 6 month? I mean, is the success or the probably is it the bone maturations in the 6 months? So that is what I would like you to clarify. And the second is about the number that you were injected. It is in the amount value of 2 millions and 3 millions. And I'm not sure that you have the story, but if you would like to explain to us, probably that will be very nice informations. Please, Professor.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Dr. Yudan. You can hear me, my voice?
Yes, very clear.
Is it okay, right? Yeah. So regarding of the time of observation or follow-ups, we usually, for the bone, usually we observe and also monitor to do follow-up every 3 months. So at the month of 3, 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months. Why? Because we believe that the fracture healing, usually it takes, according to the time, it takes 9 months. Yeah. About 6 months, sorry, 6 months for that's for normally. But on the cases of non-union, it means the patient is failed to unite it. So it for union, in the case of the non-union, it takes a longer. Usually it's 9 months or 12 months. So with this technique, we can prove that we do the randomized control trial. So one group is giving by the standard one, that one bone graft and hydroxyapatite, and the second group is using stem cell, bone marrow mesenchymal stem cell, or that one autologous, or we have already developed also with the allogenic using umbilical cord derived mesenchymal stem cell, and combine it with the hydroxyapatite also. And then we compare the using stem cell is accelerate the union. So usually for non-union, usually it takes at least 9 months or 12 months. So in this case is in the 6 months. In the 6 months, 4 until 6 months is already united. So I can show you that the case that's in the bone defect. In defect usually in the bone graft also some of them is fail, because usually the bone graft is limited only for 3 centimeters. More than 3 centimeters, like 5 centimeters, usually the bone graft, the regular standard procedures is usually fail to unite it. So that's why with using the stem cell technology, it will not only accelerate union in the complex case or non-union case, but also can fill the defects and make the consolidation of the bone in the bone defect cases. But regarding of the dose, so we have already done the several studies. So we not directly to the routine clinical application or in the patient. We do the literature review. We call it best clinical practice in stem cell application. So we do literature review, and then in vitro study, and then in animal study, and then the translational study, and finally clinical trial. And if the clinical trial approve, so we do the routinely in the clinical application purpose. So for this case, according to our study, for the non-union, usually it takes 10 million until 20 million, 15 million until 20 million for the non-union. But for the bone defect is 50 million per cell. So why we calculated like that? Usually at least 1 centimeter, one centimeter
Recording
defect,
stopped.
it will make it it will need 10 million cells. That's the study. But for the cartilage, a different thing. This one for the bone, but for the cartilage, like for the case of osteoarthritis, the cartilage we need only 10 million cells for the intra-articular injection. And the study we doing the animal study, it proved also, according to the review or our study or other study, another researcher, the phenomenon is very interesting, because if you give it a dose, it's not make better result, but it will make another problem with the fibrosis, because in the cartilage we would like to
Recording in progress.
achieve we call it cartilage regeneration or chondrogenesis, but in the higher dose, for instance 100 million cell, it will make bad result, make it the cartilage become fibrosis. That we don't want that one. But minimum dose too low, than 10 million, it will make we cannot get the cartilage regeneration or chondrogenesis optimum. So that's why before deciding the amount of the dose, we do the in vitro and also in animal study regarding this one. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Yudan.
Ismail. It's very clear now. So everything is based on the medical proof, yeah, based on the science proof. Yeah. Do we have other questions from the floor? Prof. Ismail, there is one. One of the drawbacks is that it has high cost. Would you mind to share when you are referring to the high cost? Do you have the value in dollars?
The price, minute.
Yeah.
The price.
Yeah.
Yeah. We want so for the UCMSC that we use the unit cost is 3.6 rupiah per cell. So it means, for instance, if you need 10 million cells, so it will costly about 36 million rupiah.
36.
That's for the cost for the UCMSC, umbilical cord derived mesenchymal stem cell. So that's why, because of issue of the cost, so now we not only doing research for stem cell, but also the secretome and exosome, because we can see, according to the study, actually the implanted stem cell is not proliferate, or maybe proliferate, but very limited, and also even in differentiation. So the effect of the regeneration is actually from the paracrine effect. So that's why if paracrine effect, so it means is from the growth factors. So it means from like secretome or exosome, because the growth factors, the exosome and secretome is contain of growth factors. So in other words, is why if the transplantation and also differentiation of the stem cell could not proliferate and differentiate, why we don't do the transplanted the secretome or exosome that directly growth factor. So that's why now we do the research, deeply doing research of this metabolite of the stem cell, that the price of course the price, and also we don't have to the cryopreservation, because and whenever we store the mesenchymal stem cell, usually it need 196 degree minus, minus 196 degree Celsius. But for the secretome and exosome is we just only need the special storage, like minus 20 is enough, and also very ready to use and easily to manufacturing and easily to transfer, and the price is very low, very low. Like for instance, in our center, the cost of secretome is 250 million, 250,000, 250,000, not million, 250,000 per meal.
Okay.
'cause I'd rather be home feeling blue. So I'm saving all my love for you. You used to tell me we'd run away together. Love gives you the right to be free.
Hello, Prof. Chan.
Yes, I am here.
Yes, I hear you very well. So thank you for your time. Now we are starting your talks. But before that, I would love to read your CV to the to all the audience. So today we have Prof. George Kuo Jiang Chen that received his bachelor and PhD from South China University of Technology in 85 and Graz University of Technology, Austria in 8 nines, respectively. And he conducted research in 90 until 94 as a postdoc at University of Nottingham in UK and University of Alberta in Canada. He has been focusing his research on microbial materials, polyhydroalkanoates, metabolic engineering, synthetic biologies, and PHA biomaterial application since 1986. And then afterwards, joining Tsinghua University in 1994, he has been actively promoting the microbial bio and material industries in China. Professor Chen at this moment has more than 35 years of research and development experiences on microbial physiology, microbial PHA productions, and its applications. Has published over 400 international peer-reviewed papers with over 60,000 citations, with H index more than 100 as reported in Google Scholar, and also with over 50 issued patents and 50 pending patents. Prof. Chen's technology has been provided to several companies that succeeded in mass production of microbial polyhydroxyalkanoates. He has received many awards for his contributions to the microbial manufacturing fields, and beginning from 2015, he became the founding director of the Center for Synthetic and System Biology in Tsinghua University. From 2015 till 2024, he served as chair professor of synthetic biology at the University of Manchester, UK, United Kingdom. So, without further ado, I would love to present Prof. Chen. Prof. Chen, the time is yours. Please start your talk.
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Chairman, for the kind introduction. Taking this opportunity, I would like to thank the local organizer, especially the University of Indonesia and the Asia Congress on Biotechnology for allowing me to give my talk here. And I would also especially like to thank Professor Wen-Qing Li for setting the AFOB platform, allowing the bioscientists in Asia to exchange their idea. So I think this is a very difficult time, and I regret that I cannot go to the Bali, the very nice place for taking part in these great events. In this picture, you will see the beautiful Bali Island, which I visited some years ago with my family. So it was a very nice location. It's really a pity that I cannot join the events. So my lecture will be the next generation industrial biotechnology based on synthetic biology halomonas for PHA production. So current industrial biotechnology use microorganisms. They have advantages such as aqueous reaction, room temperature, normal pressure, systemic resources, not toxicity for production of chemicals. But it also suffers from other disadvantages, including slower bioreactions, lower yield, high energy input, discontinuous process, heavy freshwater consumption, and so on. And it's also very difficult to scale up. And this is the result that most of the bioproduct has higher cost. So this is the reason for the higher cost of bioproduction, because we use many traditional chases we call microbiochases for bioproduction, including E. coli, Pseudomonas, Aeromonas, Lactobacillus, Clostridium, Bacillus subtilis, Coronaria bacteria, Ralstonia eutrophior, and Streptomyces, as well as yeast. All of these organisms suffer from easy contamination when you try to grow them in a larger bioreactors. To prevent contamination in a larger scale of bioproduction, we had to install air filtration system to remove contaminating microorganisms from the air inflow. And we also need to install the sterilization facility to sterilize the substrates at higher temperature and higher pressure, or the steam. And the entire fermenter vessel had to be sealed and also sterilized to prevent contamination from anywhere. And in addition, you also have very difficult downstream processing process. This is why the cost is very high. So, for example, to prevent sterilization in the inflow air, we had to install this very complicated air filtration system.
空压站把空气输送过来以后，会经过一个空气发热器进行加热，维持空气的温度，然后经过0.5毫米的过滤器，过滤空气总滤进行一个过滤，然后再输送到车间内部使用。进入车间，经过2道0.0。
So as you can see, the air filtration is very complicated. So there's many problems, not just the air filtration system. This causes higher costs for current industrial biotechnology. To overcome this problem, we summarize all of the difficulty that we need to solve to reduce the cost of the current industrial biotechnology. We call this next generation industrial biotechnology, short as NGIB. And these challenges include higher water consumption, high energy input, discontinuous process, capital-intensive investment, engineering for multiple products, and higher cost for product recovery, lower product concentration, lower yield scale-up, and wastewater treatment. All of these problems contribute to the higher cost of current industrial biotechnology. So I propose the concept called next generation industrial biotechnology based on extremophilic bacteria. This extremophilic bacteria, remember, we also had archaea, which is also extremophilic, but here we refer to extremophilic bacteria. So first we had to find extremophilic bacteria that also save water, especially fresh water issues. So for example, 97% of the water on Earth is seawater, but they had never been used for fermentation. And because fermentation, or what we call industrial biotechnology, required a lot of water for washing, medium preparation, sterilization, and cooling. And this is the environment of larger scale industrial fermentation. And you can see we dump a lot wastewater every day from larger scale fermentation. However, most of the industrial microorganisms we use do not grow well in seawater, even though we try to use seawater, because seawater contains a higher concentration of salt, sodium chloride. Luckily, we have halophilic bacteria that can grow in seawater. As you can see near the sea, you have the salt fields, and you will see the red color. This is an indication of growth of halophilic bacteria that produce a rhodopsin in reflecting as red color. But bacteria in seawater do not grow at a normal temperature. So we're looking for an environment where we can find halophilic bacteria that can grow at a normal temperature. So in a place we call Xinjiang, which is the largest province in China, there's a lake called Aidin Lake. In this lake, you have salt concentration of 200 grams per liter, and the temperature in this lake is about -20 to +70 degrees centigrade. And normally you will see this salt, crystallized salt on the lake, but sometimes it rains, you will see some water here. But most of the time, the environment is very dry. And in this salt lake, we actually find Halomonas TD01 and Halomonas LS21 that are able to grow at a normal temperature from 30 to 37 degrees centigrade. As you can see here, they also accumulate this granule, which is called polyhydrix arganoate polyester, which is a biodegradable plastics. And this was done by a student working in my lab in the past 20 years. This Halomonas organism grow in seawater at a pH of 8 to 9, compared to E. coli that grow very fast in an LB environment. You can see that the Halomonas bacteria grow longer and almost with the same speed as the E. coli. So they're actually good choices for the industrial purpose because they grow in seawater. Now we can use seawater to replace fresh water for industrial production to save fresh water. And the next issue is higher energy input, because we had to use higher temperature, higher pressure steam to sterilize the seawater, the fermentation medium, and this is really energy intensive. So we had to avoid the high energy by using non-sterile fermentation process. For example, normally when you handle a microorganism, you work under laminar flow and flame to sterilize the environment, where with halomonas, because they grow in seawater with higher salt concentration, under alkaline environment, you can operate the process in a room environment without sterilization. And for example, when you inoculate culture into the fermenter, you need to use flame. In this case, for example, you use flame, right? And then you put the seed into the environment. And after you inoculate the seed culture into the fermenter, you see the vessel and you remove the flame. And this is a very complicated procedure when you're doing it in a large scale. In this case, with halomonas, you're not worrying about the contamination, so you can simply pour the seed culture into the fermenter without worrying about contamination. Then we avoid higher pressure, higher temperature steam, and we save energy. And because the organism actually require very lower aeration, so we also reduce energy for aeration. And then because of the contamination resistant process, we can run the process in a continuous way without worrying about contamination during the long time incubation. In these cases, actually, you are using seawater and you filter to remove possible particles and maybe shrimps or small fishes in the seawater. And you conducted a slightly higher temperature sterilization to remove possible phages, and you inoculate the seed culture into the small seed fermenter. And after 12 hours, you inoculate the seed culture into the large vessel, and you fill the culture medium into the vessel for maybe 24 hours. Then afterwards, you pump the seed, the cell into the next vessel to allow the accumulation of your bioproduct, for example, PHA bioplastics. And after a while, you pump the cell containing intracellular products such as polyhydroxyalkanoates, and the cell will become heavy and precipitate to the bottom of the vessel, and then the supernatant can feed up to the vessel. And you lysis cell and recover the PHA granule. And the process can be running in a continuous way for months without the contamination. And this is a highly efficient process. As you can see, that pH is at 9, temperature is 37 degrees centigrade, and sodium chloride is with a concentration like what you see in the seawater with a dissolved oxygen of 90%. To save aeration energy, we can overexpress hemoglobin protein either intracellularly or in the periplasm or the microorganism. In that case, the cell will grow much better when they are expressing the hemoglobin in the periplasm, better intracellularly compared with cell grow without hemoglobin. And in that cases, you'll use the lower aeration to improve oxygen uptake by the halomonous organisms. So in this case, you reduce the energy input by using less air compressor, for example, from the 3 air compressor to only 2 air compressors. So you save energy by using unsterile process and light aerations. And the third process is the continuous process, because most of the process worry about contamination. Therefore, the process has to be short. We call batch fermentation. However, the halomonous organisms do not worry about contamination, so you can run the process into a continuous one over a period of long time, such as months, without worrying about contamination. So the third process is capital investment. You need a lot of money to install air filtration system and the sterilization system for larger scale fermentation. Where now we don't worry about the contamination. We can remove air compression system, the air filtration system, and then you pump the air directly into the vessel. So you do not lose a lot of air pressure. So you can use one air compressor instead of two. And also the sterilization of substrate can also be removed. So you pump the substrates directly into the vessel. You reduce the aeration and steam, and you also reduce equipment, and you also reduce process complexity because you have less equipment. So this also reduces cost for the production. On the other hand, most of the fermenters are built from stainless steel, as you can see on the left pictures, because we had to maintain the equipment to witness higher pressure and higher temperature. But now the fermentation can be run under normal pressure without higher temperature, higher pressure. So you can use plastic to replace stainless steel. As you can see on the right picture, the fermenter is plastics and it's transparent. So it's light also. So here, in a larger scale industry, you will see that this is a plastic vessel. You see very clear, you can see it inside. So you can use plastic to replace stainless steel bioreactors. And now we have chassis, Halomonas chassis, that is able to use seawater to replace fresh water. You can run unsterile process. You can run the process in the continuous way, or you can use plastic to replace stainless bioreactors. You save a lot of cost to build the process. And the next problem is how to engineer the organism for production of different products. And you also need to solve problems of higher cost, lower product concentration, higher yield, and scale-up issues. So let's talk about the multiple products. For example, in our case, we produce multiple PHA bioproducts, including PHB, PHVV, and P34HB. These are different PHA products with different properties, such as PHB, that is a very fragile material, and that cannot be used for making films. And you also have PHV material that is less fragile, can be used to make less hard material. You also have elastic P34HB polymer that can be used to make films. So you insert the gene responsible for production of these three different bioplastics by making their gene into the genome. For example, by making elastic P34 copolymer, by inserting the related gene into the genome, you were able to produce bioplastics with different elasticity, allow you to make a film of different thickness. And this is completely possible by engineered Halomonas organisms. So we can also make structurally diverse PHA by engineering the Halomonas. For example, we can put different diodes, different lengths of diode material into the Halomonas, and then we will be able to build different modulars, making different monomer structure into the polymer to make, for example, a copolymer of 3-hydroxybutyrate and 5-hydroxyviolates. And then we were able to make many different monomer into the polymers, and that will allow us to make either homopolymer, dipolymer, and tetrapolymer, or even tetrapolymer containing 4 different monomer. For example, this copolymer can generate a very high elasticity. For example, you can pour the polymer into such a higher elastic model until the polymer breaks. So by using the engineered Halomonas, you were able to produce a polymer of different strengths, different elasticity. Now you can assemble new pathway in the halomonas to make different products in the microorganism. And the next issue is the higher difficulty to recover the product from the cell. For example, the E. coli or maybe halomonas, they are very light cell. They are very difficult to be separated from the higher salt containing broth. And so we apply a morphology engineering technology to change the shape of an organism, for example, by overexpressing the min CD gene, by building or by constructing a plasmid containing min CD gene that control the length of the bacteria. We're able to we transform the plasmid into the E. coli, and the E. coli actually change their shape from bar shape into the fiber shape. As you can see that the bacteria become fiber shape, and you can see also some bacteria that still maintain their bar shape, but most of them are turning into the fiber shapes. The fiber bacteria are intertwined together and they form aggregation, and this allow you to separate these aggregated or intertwined the bacteria fiber shape to precipitate to the bottom of the container. You can see that the control bar-shaped bacteria has difficulty to precipitate from the broth, where the intertwined fiber-shaped bacteria can be easily separated from the fermentation broth. So, and on the other hand, to make more inclusion body into in the bacteria, we can turn the ping pong ball shape into a basketball shaped bacteria. For example, in this case, we repress the MIB gene, which encode the skeleton gene in the bar-shaped bacteria. And when this MIB gene is repressed or regulated, the bar-shaped bacteria turning into a spherical shape. And when you further regulate the expression level of this MIB gene, the bacteria is turning from a ping pong ball into a basketball shape. As you can see here, when you section this bacteria, you will see that the basketball shaped bacteria containing much more inclusion body compared with this tiny bacteria or ping pong ball shape. So in this case, you increase the inclusion body contained inside this basketball-shaped bacteria. And so if you stand the PHA granule inclusion body, you can see that the basketball-shaped bacteria contain much more inclusion body compared with the bar-shaped one. So the same principle was used to engineer the halomonas, and the halomonas is increased its small size from a ping pong ball shape into a larger size basketball shape form. In this case, the basketball shape bacteria are becoming much more heavy, so they are easily precipitate to the bottom of this container, so they can be easily recovered from the fermentation broth. So when you stop agitation, you can see that the basketball shape bacteria can be precipitated to the bottom of the vessel, so you can easily recover from the fermentation broth. You reduce the cost of downstream purification. Now we can use morphology engineering to recover the products from the fermentation broth. And the next stage is to improve the lower product concentration, lower yield, and solve the problem of the scale up. And although this is actually related to oxygen supply in the larger scale bioreactor, it is very difficult to supply sufficient oxygen in the larger scale bioreactor. As we can see that in the larger scale bioreactor, you cannot stir in the vessel at higher speeds, so you can have to use lower agitation to mix the air with the medium, so this results in lower oxygen supplies. So to meet this challenge, we just increase oxygen availability using the hemoglobin I was mentioning in the last few slides. With sufficient supply of the oxygen using the hemoglobin expression, we were able to scale up the 7.5 bioreactor process to the 1 cubic meter bioreactor further to 5 cubic bioreactor, you can see that bacteria growth, the same the kinetics as in the same 5.5 liter. As you can see that the 5 cubic meter even grow better than the 7.5 cubic meter bioreactors. As you can see that here is the industrial bioreactor of 5,000 cubic meter. You use stainless steel to build this bioreactor, where in this video you will see that plastic bioreactor also can be used successfully to produce PSA for making films, as you can see here. So these are all the PHA bioplastic made from the next generation industrial biotechnology. Halomonas grow under open and continuous process. So to summarize, the current industrial biotechnology use a very complicated and highly educated staff to monitor the complicated fermentation process to get the product. Any leakage will cause contamination and disrupt the fermentation process. Now we have the next generation industrial biotechnology that you need not worry about the contamination issue. So you can scale up the process easily. You do not use highly trained scientists. You can also make multiple products, either in the extracellular space or intracellularly. And you also use seawater to grow the halomonal organism. So this is much more simple, and the cost of production could be significantly reduced. So I summarize again. Current industrial biotechnology has disadvantages, including higher water consumption, energy consumption, discontinued process, capital intensive, and it was difficult to make multiple products, and it was a higher cost for product recovery due to lower product yet, and scale up is very difficult due to the difficulty to prevent contamination and oxygen uptake. And the next generation industrial technology reduced water consumption, reduced energy inputs, and turned the discontinued process into a continuous one. And it used less capital because it used plastic bioreactor, and you reduce many equipment for sterilization. You can make multiple products. And product recovery is simple as you have a morphology engineer approach. And then the product concentration can be increased as the cell precipitate to the bottom of the vessel, and the yield can be increased. Scale became easier as the process is easy without contamination, and oxygen uptake is simple. And then we had the issue of wastewater problem because seawater contains sodium chlorides. And all of this we call next generation industrial biotechnology. So people are worrying still about the sodium chloride in the seawater because sodium chloride is very difficult to treat. So to solve the problem, student Lincoln was very smart to engineer the surface of these halomonous organisms by deleting the charged protein, including the fluoride and sulfur protein, ETF, alpha into beta. When these surface charged proteins are deleted, the bacteria are easily flocculated and they grow into aggregation. Over time, you can see the aggregate of the culture actually increase. Here you will see under normal agitation, the bacteria grow homogeneously. However, when you stop agitation, the bacteria are aggregated quickly, and they can precipitate to the bottom of the vessel within a minute. So this allows you to recover this precipitate easily, and the supername can be added with fresh medium and grow again. So you recover the precipitates biomass from the bottom, and the supernatant can be grown again, of course, added with fresh medium. So the growth is 48 hours, for example, and you stop agitation, the cell precipitates, and you recover the precipitated cell mass, and the supernatant is added with fresh medium and grow for another 24 hours. You recover the precipitate again, and then you grow the supernatant again. In this case, you can grow, recover the supernatant, and separate the cell again at least 4 times. And of course, you can make longer time. Of course, the students are very tired when he did this experiment over a period of a week. So again, I summarize, you use the seawater and remove the particles or maybe some fresh animals from the seawater, and you inoculate the fermenter, sea vessel, grow the cell, and then you grow the cell and allow them to precipitate the pHa, and then the bacteria will become bigger and larger, they precipitate, and the supernatant can be returned to the vessel again. Then the supernatant containing sodium chloride actually can be recycled during the fermentation process. You recover the pHa containing cells, and the broken cell that contain protein, DMA, RNA can be heated and lysis under alkaline condition to become a nutrient for the cell to grow again. In this case, you reduce sodium chloride containing wastewater again. So the next generation industrial biotechnology cannot just use halophilics as the production stream. You can apply the similar principle to use psychrophytes that grow at lower temperature, thermophytes that grow at higher temperature, acidophytes grow at lower pH, alkalophytes grow at higher pH, and of course methanophytes that consume only methanol, and xylophytes that grow at lower water activity to prevent contamination. You can use morphology engineering to induce cell shape change for gravity separation of cell and broth. And this process will allow the production of biological product at lower cost. So now we are setting up the first next generation industrial bioprocess in a factory near Beijing. And maybe next time when the AFOB member come to Beijing, they will contact me and visit the plant again to see how this was done. And of course, the bioplastic PHA in this project has been produced in a larger scale. They can be used for agriculture as the mushroom film. For example, in agriculture, we have many contaminated plastics. Nowadays, and they can be replaced by PHA bioplastics. And you can see that the plant coated with PHA mushroom film allow the plant to grow much faster, while on the other side, the plant without the PHA mushroom film grows slower. And after a while, the PHA biodegradable mushroom film will be degraded, leaving no trace behind, and it does not contaminate the soil. And the PHA granule it cannot just be used to make a film, they can also be used to feed. So the
从解剖鱼的情况来看，张文斌对这条3羟基丁酸聚合物喂养的大黄鱼发育情况比较满意。
So all the PHA granule are digested very well by the fish. So the PHA plastic will be used in the future, maybe to solve the plastic problem in the ocean, as the animal will be able to eat the PHA granule safely, and they use PHA as their feed. So we have conducted study using PHA as a feed additive for fish. We can see that the fish actually increase their weight by 10 to 55% when you feed PHA as additive for fish. And we can also use the PHA, PHB as animal feed for piglets. And the piglets also eat PHA granule, and you can see that they had their weight increased slightly. So the PHA plastic bioplastics can be used to make fiber, and they can be used to make textile. And maybe in the future we will use our clothes not from the agriculture and the chemical industry, but from the fermentation process. And usually polylactic acid is not a biomaterial that easily stand. But when PFA is blended with PFA, they can become standable. So in the future, the fermentation process produce PSA, and they make colorful textile for our clothes. And on the other hand, we can also make functional PHA to emit lights, such as red color, UV color, and so on. And we can also use the PHA to absorb oil. You can see that the oil added with Sudan red can be easily absorbed by PHA granules. And when you change the structure of the PHA material, you can turn the PHA into not transparent into transparent bioplastics. So in the future, the PHA can be used to make bottle, shopping bag, and maybe iPhone cover. And after the application, as this packaging material, they can be pulverized. They can be break into small pieces and to feed animal, either in the ocean, in the river, or on the land. And that is recycle these bioplastics. So we are talking with a company in Singapore and in China about setting up next generation industry parked on the ocean, where you can see that we are transporting raw material from the ocean using wind power or wave power to generate electricity to power the fermentation in the plastic bioreactor. And all those bioplastics produced will be used to make film, textile, feeds, and maybe 3D printed material and biomaterial for application and their shipping to the markets. And this is what we are working on this. On the other hand, because the PSA are produced from the seawater, so when we have money, we can build a ship, and we can also maybe import some starch from either South America, North America, and this starch material can be processed on ships, and they are produced on the fermenter. In the fermenter, that setting up in the ships, and when the ship arrive in the location, and they can already loaded with PHA granule for different applications. So I think my time is up. So thank you for your attention. This is about 20 years of research contributed by many students in my laboratory, and we are very grateful for the funding agency in the Ministry of Science and Technology and the National Science Foundation of China. Once again, I thank you for the audience here in Indonesia, in Bali Island, that I'm unable to attend and exchange ideas with yourself. Thank you for your kind attentions.
Thank you very much, Prof. Chen. It is very great presentations. I'm very enjoying the full cycle of the bacteria Halomonas and then the products and how the future is could see from the abstracts of the dream of the green manufacturing is really nice. So there are some questions, but I would like to ask from the floor. Is there any questions regarding? Yes, please, sir. No, I think you can go here. It's much more easier.
Hi, good afternoon, Corné Rabai, Ghent University, Belgium. I really love the talk, how you think of all aspects, and maybe I missed one aspect, is how the salinity is going to affect the downstream extraction of the PHA, in which case often also quite salty acid bases are being used. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Yes, please, Prof. Chen.
Yeah, I think this is a very good question. Sodium chloride actually are very corrosive to stainless steel equipment, and we are using alkaline fermentation environments, and corruption only occur when the pH is around 7 or lower than 7 in acidic environments. So in an alkaline environment, sodium chloride actually does not corrupt stainless steel equipment. So I hope that I address your concerns.
Extractions. The keyword was the extractions of the pH. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, extraction. So also very good question, because we use Halomona organism, and Halomona is grow in a highly osmotic pressure environment. So when you recover the cell, you simply use water, maybe some fresh water to dilute the sodium chloride solution. And when the osmotic pressure is reduced, the cell will automatically lysis and releasing the intracellular PHA granules.
Thank you. Yeah, it's perfect. Do we have only one question, I think, yeah?
What is the maximum yield you have got after purification?
Could you go?
What is the maximum yield you have got after purification, and when we are just comparing the production to final product recovery?
So if I understand correctly, purification, right? Purity.
Yes, a pure PHA from the production vessel.
Yeah, excellent questions. The purity and the difficulty of purification rely on the content of the PHA. For example, usually we can achieve 80 to 90% of the PHA content in the cell dry weight. And in that case, we can get the PHA at a purity of 99%. And this 99% is very important for downstream processing into films or maybe other products.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Prof. Chen. I'm afraid that we have to close these sessions. I know that there is other questions, but I'm really sorry that we have to end this. And please, we give applause, our best applause to Prof. Chen again. Thank you, Prof. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I will close the...
Thank you very much. Again, we are missing you here in Bali. It's really sad we didn't see you in person. Thank you, Prof. Chen. Looking forward to seeing you. So that will be our second presenter. And now I would love to hand my my role to Prof. Misri Gozan. And we will about to enter our third presenter. But I would love to introduce Prof. Misri. Yeah, please, Prof. Misri, because I'm now tasking as a master ceremony as itself. So I think Prof. Misri Gozan, please pakai ini nanti. Yeah, Prof. Misri Gozan was formerly Vice President of OB in Indonesia. So I believe that we don't have to introduce Prof. Misri Gozan, but if not, Prof. Misri Gozan was a bachelor in chemical engineering from University of Indonesia, and then he further studied to Germany for the bioprocess. Yeah, Prof. Misri. Before the master is in Auckland, New Zealand. So I think that will be my my time. Thank you, Prof. Misri.
Thank you, Pak Yudan, Dr. Yudan, for nice introduction. Now we come to the last plenary session for today, and my job is very easy today because we have a very special guest that I don't have to introduce too much to you. Is he here? Oh, okay, okay. We will have Professor Siram Ramakrishna. If you find his name in Scopus, you will get a very high index Scopus 153. And he is a professor in mechanical engineering, especially in materials in National University of Singapore. He already published about at least 10 books that I know. Then more than 1,680 papers published in the reputable journal. And he's working basically in materials. And he also one of the co-founder of the NUS Nanoscience and Nanotechnology initiatives. And he is also has the chair of the Circular Economy Task Force. So you can see that his broad background and also many experience in the materials, and also move on to the more trending topics, which is circular economic. He graduated from Harvard University and also Cambridge for his PhD. So without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Professor Siram Ramakrishna. Punya lasernya nggak perlu.
I need the slide movement.
Untuk bisa dibantu untuk slide pergerakan slide-nya mungkin. Oh, you need for the movie, right? Or you can you ask them to move the video? Basically, you need this.
To move the slides up and down.
You can ask them.
I have 245 slides.
45 slides?
245.
Oh, okay. They have done it. Yes, no.
Okay. Good. Well, let me begin by saying my heartfelt thanks to the organizers for having me, as well as a kind introduction by our chairman. Today, my lecture is about future directions of biomedical materials, with the subtext intelligent biomedical materials and sustainable biomedical materials. These two topics overlap what has been presented by the other two plenary speakers. Now, I have about 50 minutes, and I have 250 slides. Do the maths. So that's the reason I was looking for a slide mover, but they said you have a voice command and they will adjust it. So using the most advanced digital technology to move my slides. I know you're all awake now because 250 slides, how is this guy going to finish in 50 minutes? Don't worry. Right there is a LinkedIn website. I already posted a copy of my slides. So all of you, anybody, if at all you get interested, you could download a copy.
Thank you very much.
Now, you may be wondering why I have 250 slides, because I looked at the conference titles. One is Asian Congress on Biotechnology, other one is Biomedical Engineering. It's somewhat distinct areas. I thought I should try my best to fit into the overall theme of the conference. So I started adding slides. Like every professor, you think you have a lot to say. So that's why I ended up with lots of slides. But don't worry, I will certainly finish within 50 minutes so that I won't stand between you and your nice dinner. So with that, that's my introduction, where my email address, WhatsApp, and LinkedIn. So you could get in touch with me either way you feel comfortable. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm a materials researcher, as I was introduced. There's a privilege as a materials researcher because human civilization progress is often denoted by advances in materials. So if you look at on the left side to now, we say we passed through the Stone Age, Iron Age, Bronze Age, and more recently Silicon Age and molecular materials age. As a researcher in this field, and also mentoring lots of young people around the world, it's natural for me to ask the question, if you are a material scientist, what would be the future and what would be the most important directions in material science? Hence, I decided to add those two. One is intelligent materials. The second one is low carbon materials or sustainable materials. Again, intelligent materials, again, it can be confusing. Normally, we associate intelligence with the living beings. Those working in biotechnology or life sciences, biomedicine, we normally associate intelligence with living forms, and humans tend to be thinking they have a higher intelligence. But here I'm saying intelligent materials. So there lies a question, right? But it's worth pondering over it. The next one is sustainable or low carbon materials. The last two, previous speaker from Tsinghua University articulated the need for bioplastic production using advanced or improved or more current biotechnology method. So that's one example. Next slide, please. So I'm an editor for Current Opinion Biomedical Engineering. And if you look at the last column, we're actually going to have a new special issue on sustainable biomedical materials. So in other words, I firmly believe that this is the direction humanity has to take. Through my other slides, I will convince you why that is an important direction. Next slide, please. Okay, I think we stay with this one. These are what we call various disabilities, diseases human beings come across. More recently, mental health is one of the important issues. On the right side, when I started biomedical engineering program in Singapore, that was 20 years ago, we did not know that it's an area where we would be able to grow. But last 20 years, Singapore made a huge progress, and we have lots of jobs and added billions of dollars economic growth. So I believe Indonesia, as well as the rest of the other countries that are in this conference, biomedical engineering is definitely an important area because of so much of healthcare burden, which is continuously growing. Next one. That healthcare burden is now further aggravated by what we call extreme weathers, climate change. A classical example is COVID-19, where people draw comparisons how COVID-19 is further influencing the long-term effects on human health. So there are people with brain fog, other coronary artery diseases, as well as many other symptoms they're still facing. So in other words, there is a further burden on the humanity because of this changing climatic conditions, as well as the new diseases, new viruses, new epidemics that are being subjected to. Next one. Okay, next one. Yeah, since it's a biomedical engineering, I have to start with this way. I teach this subject at our university. We normally say humans thrive, they learn to use biomaterials for treating themselves in the case of disabilities or diseases. Well, I think morning we had a wonderful dancers from Bali. It's a fantastic. But if you notice the second one, there are lots of murals around the world where they kind of depict the use of biomaterials for a particular disabilities or health conditions. But there are many others. Next one. Next one. So the good news is it's a huge business. Biomedical device industry is now about $500 billion. And biomaterials is about $100 billion worldwide. So now, how is this $100 billion industry is going to change? So my belief is there is a significant focus on sustainable biomedical materials. So I will show you lots of slides as an evidence. Next one. Next one. And if you are not familiar with what is a biomedical device, I wanted to show you this definition. Any device that is meant for improving the healthcare outcomes of human beings is a medical device. On the right side, you see a lady wearing a earring. In fact, I took that photo 2 weeks ago when I was in Adelaide, and actually she was in my lecture. So I asked her, with her permission, I took that photo. The point is she feels very happy about that, but that's not a medical device, right? So there's a clear distinction, what is a medical device and what is not. Then within the biomedical devices, it's a huge industry worth $500 billion. Next one. Next one. Next one. Next one. Next one. Next one. I saw posters today. There are people working on 3D printing, especially for some of the biomedical device applications. That is one important area, certainly helping biomedical industry to find new ways of treating people. In this case, I think Poland, yeah. So I saw that in the newspaper last week in Singapore, where they said a newborn baby girl, life was saved by surgeons because they're able to mend the skull because she's born with a defect. And in Poland, that's an example. And I'm sure you probably came across in your own country. Next one. So to get this perspective very well, generally biomaterials are explained from the bottom box. As a natural materials, natural ceramics, natural nanomaterials, or metals, polymers, ceramics, and composites, surface engineered materials. But I like to ask you to look at the top one, where we are talking about brain-machine interfaces, neural prostheses, and so on. So next one. So next one. I'm going to quickly go through lots of slides, and I get to the intelligent materials. Next one. Next one. Next, 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 next. I think good. This is very hard for you to read it, but I just want to say, certainly help the humanity take COVID-19. Here is an example of a very fast testing system. Pfizer just approved bought an app which measures or estimates, predicts COVID-19 from the voice. And similarly, face mask, which can detect virus. So these are all clearly examples of advances in biomaterials. Next one. Next one. Next one. Next one. Yeah, so similar to our first keynote speaker, we also work on stem cells, in this case, regeneration of after the myocardial infarction. If you can click on the video, if it works, I can show you how stem cells have been coaxed using our nanofiber technology so that they can integrate very well with the host heart tissue. Sure. Okay, so can you go ahead and click on the next one? Yeah, see whether you can click on that one. Yeah, these are induced pluripotent stem cells. They have been differentiated into cardiomyocytes, and you could see them beating very well. So this is one of the important requirement if you want to apply stem cells in regenerative medicine and tissue engineering. And next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. Next, next. Go ahead. Next. 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 Go ahead. These are all examples. In view of the time, I'm not going through that. It actually gives you that we do quite a bit of work using stem cells as well as a biomaterial combination. Yeah, next one. Next one. Next one. Next, 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 next. Oh, can you go back? Sorry. Yeah, this is an interesting area, picking up very well. This is where I like to broaden the definition of biomaterials. Traditionally, biomaterials are defined from the point of human healthcare. But moving forward, using the concepts of tissue engineering, we are now producing synthetic meat, or what they call lab-grown meat. And here is an example of different combinations of biomaterials and cells. Either they're plant-based or animal-based cells, and you engineer meat or leather and so on. Next one. These are the biomaterials. Next one. Next one. So if you see, we work with our local companies, and we're trying to make artificial or lab-grown meat, and there myself with our industry partners. Next one. I know there's lots of Japanese representation, and I came across one of the professor in Japan. He's using chopsticks, but he's applying high voltage and low current. And when you are eating, you feel you are eating a salty food, but actually there is no salt or less salt. Why I show you this particular example is, in our technology, electrospinning, we apply very high voltage but low current, and we produce polymer fibers for engineering tissues and a synthetic meat. So this high voltage, low current has a very interesting opportunities and a number of applications, in this case, about the feeling that even though you are taking less salty food, you have a sense you are taking a higher salty food. In a way, you can control the amount of salt intake. Singapore is trying to reduce the total salt consumption per person for improved healthcare outcomes. It's a major national policy decision. Next one. Next one. Next one. Go on, next one, next one. So now I'm going to introduce intelligent biomaterials. Next one. Yeah, I think it'll be probably good to know on the far right side, the mind, we understand less, but extremely important for well-being. For example, 7 thoughts per minute run through your brain. 7 thoughts per minute. And there are estimates which are actually much higher. But do we really have a better sense of these thoughts? Are we able to control these thoughts? is necessary if you want to deal with the growing mental stress people are facing. Okay, next slide. So we look at the role of intelligent materials from the point of aging. In this case, it's me. How would I age with time? So you could see on the left side how I look like, but in the future, if you see me after 10, 20 years, I would more or less look like that. Right? So it's a simulated one. But that's on the skin. But if you actually see inside the tissue and organs and cells, you find a number of things that vary as we age. Top right-hand corner, a lot of things related to neurons and muscles. So we need to figure out a way of better neural interfaces so that we understand what's going on, at the same time better help ourselves. So that's the reason why intelligent biomaterials are extremely important. Next one. Next one. I'm actually explaining a lot of details about how the neurons function, but we're not going to go into the details. Go ahead, next one. Next one. Next. Next. So these are our own research where we engineer nanofibers and then make a better neural interfaces so that we pick the signals from the functioning neurons. Next one. Next one. Next. 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 Next, 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 next one, next one, yeah. So, I just wanted to make sure that you understand it's an area with a lot of money going in. So, you got the Silicon Valley billionaires spending a lot of money in this area. Next slide. Elon Musk has a Neuralink, spent a lot of money trying to make the neural interface and understand our thought process. It's just one company, there are many other companies in this space. That's why this becomes an extremely futuristic and a growth area. Next one. Next one. Next one, next one, next one, next one, next one, next one. Since we don't have time, otherwise I would actually explain the difference between living and non-living. In this case, Sophia Robert and myself. And we were trying to explain the difference, but I won't go into the detail now. Next one. I'll show you this one. These are twins, identical twins, yeah? But their personality is very different. They're born to the same parents. They actually share the same sac in the womb. I met them just a week ago. They're not related to me, but I just spent time talking to them, understanding the real differences in their personality. It's just amazing. So that comes because our minds function differently. And that's why better neural interfaces, intelligent biomaterials are necessary. Next one. So that's where the intelligent biomaterials, which is a new emerging area we're talking about. Next one. So if you want to understand, is this possible, the best is an example of nitinol. People are already using nitinol, which is a shape memory material in biomedical application. For example, for treating the blockages in the arteries, they use these kind of stents. Similarly, correcting the dental structures, they use nitinol. So nitinol is a well-known shape memory responsive material. Okay, next one. These are history of nitinol. Go ahead. Next one, next one, next one. I explained the concept in nitinol. Next one. Next one. Next one. So same concepts are now being applied in polymer field, what we call shape memory polymers. So using the linkages between the molecules, you could introduce external stimuli responsive polymers. Yeah. So this is a whole set of biomaterials are being developed in the research. Next one. Next one. Next one. Next. 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 next, next, next. This is the kind of work we are already doing in our laboratories, where we use shape memory polymers for a number of applications. Next one, next one, next one, next one, next one, next, 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 next. Yes. Now I want to draw your attention to the definition. All your mobile phones you are using, or most of the digital devices you are using, they already have AI, artificial intelligence. So AI is intelligence demonstrated by machines. It allows the machine to perceive the environment, interpret the perceived data, synthesize new information, reason on or process that information gained, and take actions that affect the environment with some degree of autonomy in a responsible and sustainable manner. That's the definition of AI. And if you ask the question 30 years ago, most people would not agree AI is possible. But right now, it's used routinely. So in that context, we define intelligent materials capable of reacting to various external stimuli or environmental changes by rearranging their internal structure at a molecular level and adopting functionality accordingly. The initial concept of intelligence of material originated from the natural biological systems following the sensing, reacting, learning mechanism, and the dynamic adaptive nature along with the immediate responsiveness is now spurring the interest of pioneering researchers in biomedical field. Okay, so next one. So these are the memory devices being made by understanding how our brain works. Yeah. Next one. This is about stimulating the brain. Next one. Next one. Next one. Next one. Next one. Next. 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 So that's the definition I have given, intelligent materials, based on the initial understanding of responsive materials. Next one. So if you still do not believe me, or trust me, our university just established a $200 million institute for intelligent materials. $200 million. And so again, it's a belief that we think it's a direction worth pursuing. Next one. So here is some examples I show you. So far left, 10,000 years ago, biomaterials are more like inert. More recently, they're active and responsive. And moving forward, they would be a lot more intelligent and autonomous. Next one. So here is an example, a hydrogel blended with CRISPR-Cas proteins, and multiple of them are chosen, and the hydrogels are made. They sense the environment around and decide which particular ones they want to cleave, so is the response. So in other words, the hydrogel, which is a common biomaterial, somehow responds in a slightly rudimentary, intelligent way. Yeah, that's an example. Next one. So here is an example how that particular hydrogel is performing autonomously. So these are the work that has been published in the literature. Next one. There's more details, very fine print, difficult to read. Next one. There's also intelligent nanotheranostics. Again, this is for the drug delivery treatment. Next one. Next one. Next one. Next one. Yeah. Can you go back? So essentially, you make the hydrogels intelligent using biological techniques like the one I showed you using CRISPR technique. Other one is through the chemical methods. Other one is also physical arrangement of molecular structures. One could imagine making intelligent materials. Next one. Next one. Next one. Next one. Next one. Yeah. So here is intelligent hydrogels where we are looking at different concepts. physical, chemical, and biological, and then the responses to external conditions like a temperature, pH, change in other surroundings, and what kind of applications one could imagine in the future. And below you see wound healing, for example, or many other possibilities. So as I said, it's an important area, just beginning to come up. Next one. Next one. I won't go into the detail, but this can be also visualized at the intelligent material systems, what we call wearables. So I have 20-30 slides where we make lots of those things in our lab. You just keep clicking them. Next one. Next one. So this is how we make nanofibers, we make them responsive. Next one. For different body conditions like change in the body speed, movement, pulses, sweat conditions, one could imagine. Next one. Yeah, these are how we actually make the devices. Next one. Next. These are the, if you can click on that one, you would see a responsive polymer. I don't know whether you can click on the video. Are you able to click on it? No. Never mind. It's actually on the guy on the right side. If you click on it, there is a video. That's fine. No worry. Basically, what it means is we actually try to make these surfaces which are touch sensitive, and we apply for a particular robotic condition, and that actually demonstrates that one. Next one. Next one. Next. 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 Next, 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 next. So hold on there. So essentially all those examples, and I bored with you lots of slides, not to show that we have lots of slides. It's more important is this is the work that's happening, and there are many researchers slowly picking up this idea. So if you are interested in building your future in biomedical engineering, certainly intelligent biomaterials is a good direction. That's the main point I want to make. Now I'm going to switch to the sustainable biomedical materials. Next one. I think other speakers already said, and you're all very well aware, that there's a climate change and also related to the greenhouse gas emissions, which are emitted by human activities, what we call anthropogenic activities. Yeah, next one. Including Indonesia, all other countries, most countries have pledged carbon neutrality by 2050. So in other words, most countries say that we would like to be carbon neutral by 2050. There's a 30 years from now. It's a major, significant policy decision by the countries. So now I'm going to build a sustainable biomedical materials in this context. Next one. So actually you can only achieve net zero provided we actually remove CO2 or greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. Otherwise we won't be able to achieve net zero by 2050. So that's fundamentally the main observation. Next one. So countries like Singapore, they are becoming highly proactive. We are now building a subsea cable from Australia to Singapore, which covers about 5,000 kilometers, to bring renewable solar energy. Actually, it will pass through Indonesia. So I was told they got the permissions to do so, and it will actually come through the Indonesian coastal line. So such a project is not even conceived 10 years ago. It's unthinkable. But right now it's happening because of 2050 goal announced by the countries. They have to find less polluting energy source. And that's the reason. Yeah. So next one. So on the left side, I think you can't read it, but it's about Sulawesi, where you have a nickel, which is the third, probably largest income generating for Indonesia. I was told nickel production and export. that earns a lot of money for Indonesia. Why is that important now? That's because in the previous slide, I showed energy coming, renewable energy coming from Australia to Singapore. That requires intermittent energy fluctuation management. But what are we going to do with that energy? We're going to use that energy to power electric cars. For that you need batteries. They need nickel. That's why nickel, lithium, cobalt are extremely desired materials now. And that's why Indonesia is getting benefited for this global change. So that's the left side. On the right side, that's today's newspaper in Singapore that appeared. There's something called deep sea mining from Canadian companies. They're arguing deep sea mining is better than open mining, which is or the earth-based mining. Well, you see how the conversations go. And point now, what I'm trying to say is, these conversations are happening because of the carbon neutrality definition pledges by 2050. So that's very important. Next one. So Indonesia has a fantastic opportunity because there are lots of mangroves. And mangroves absorb greenhouse gases. So obviously huge potential for Indonesia. If we can map them and apply them as a carbon credits. But that's in Australia. Recently I was in Australia. I took that picture of their mangroves. Next one. And then there's a link I'm building from carbon emissions to the materials. So hang on with me. She is the daughter of a guy who worked very well on, pioneered on acid rains, which is because of the greenhouse gas emissions accumulation in the atmosphere. We had a meeting before I left for this meeting in Singapore. She flew from US. Next one. So the point is, the human-made materials now exceed all the living beings on planet Earth. So that's why the materials are coming center stage as a focus. Next one. And of course, they contribute lots of pollution. Next one. And for example, 1970, there are only 70,000 chemicals. Now we have close to 350,000 chemicals. Massive. So these, so many synthetic chemicals are actually now being related to some of them onto the negative implications of human health directly. Next one. This in this case is the plastics. The next one. My collaborator Terence Collins, he claims that infertility in countries related to the endocrine disruptors caused by the additives in plastics. That's why we need to look at plastics much more closely. Next one. These are the details of how much face masks worldwide we are using. I know some of you are still wearing the face mask. After one use, how much of the face mask wastage that is happening, the materials in the world. There's a large number there. Next one. So, if we want to get net zero, we have to deal with materials, and we actually have to reduce the emissions associated with the materials production and usage. According to the United Nations, 45% of emissions are related to the materials. Total greenhouse gas emissions, 45% are related to the materials. So that's the detail for you. Next one. So that's why we are going into the circular economy, which emphasizes recycling, upcycling, reuse, and closing the loop, waste loop. So this is where we are championing what we call net zero societies in the world. So on the right side is called circular economy. There's a lot of details. Next one. So these are the definitions according to the United Nations and ISO. I'm part of the ISO committee that looks at the definitions. This week we announced the definition for circular economy, the world's definition, and that's the definition as per the new standard we released just this week. Next one. So the total greenhouse gas emissions, when we say net zero, 55% of them are related to the energy associated services. 45% are related to the materials. That's why materials becomes extremely important. Next one. These are more details, which kind of materials. Plastics is one of them. Next one. Next one. So what's happening now is greenhouse gas emissions are linked to the materials, up to 45% of the emissions. That's why materials are receiving a lot of attention. Last year at the United Nations, they agreed to limit the amount of material production, primarily plastics. So next year, governments around the world would agree on setting the production limits of plastics. So now that becomes important for you. The previous presenter, he was talking about bioplastics, trying to replace fossil fuel derived plastics. So that's how important is this particular area. Once the limits are set, but the population is growing, their consumptions are going, and per capita material usage is also increasing. The only way you can actually help them is two ways, is material circular economy and replacing with the bio-based plastics. That's what we call sustainable materials. And you apply for biomedical applications, we call it sustainable biomedical materials. Next one. So traditionally, to analyze a material, whether it is sustainable, we use a life cycle assessment. And this is how LCA is conducted, life cycle assessment. You look at the impact on the environment and human health. But that is not sufficient. That is until now. Next one. So the standard which we released this week at the UN meeting, I was part of the drafting committee. We defined ISO 59020, which adds extra dimension in analyzing the materials, what we call circularity performance. Yeah, next slide. So this is how a circularity performance of material is analyzed. This is in addition to the life cycle impact assessment.
Professor, you have 5 per minute?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So with that definition, next one. This is media releases in Australia. Next one. So this is a bit detailed, very difficult for you. If you can download a copy of my presentation that actually illustrates how the investors are looking at sustainable materials. So this is one of the biggest investment groups, UBS. Next one. Yeah, I think that's a detail. Since the time is limited, I'm going to run through faster. Next one. Next one. So now I'm connecting to the medical world. NHS UK, that's the total healthcare provider in the United Kingdom. I met the Chief Sustainability Officer 2 weeks ago. That's the NHS plan to become carbon neutral by 2045. NHS is a large healthcare provider in the UK. Next one. So that's exactly how they're going to reduce the carbon emissions in NHS UK. You will start seeing similar programs by other countries. Singapore as well, we are doing it. So in other words, medical healthcare environment is also changing towards this sustainability thinking. And that's where the materials comes in. Next one. Next one. These are details. Next one. Next one. Next one. Next one. Go back. So this is in Singapore. Our healthcare system, they're also going towards carbon neutrality by 2050. So next one. So this is how we're going to do a lot of things systematically. Next one. For example, these are NUS students looking at recycling tablets as well as the packaging material. So that's what I mean by applying sustainable biomedical materials. Yeah. Okay, next one. So next one. next one, next one, next one. So I put myself a series of questions. In healthcare sector, the role of bioplastics and sustainable biomedical materials, and I provide the answers. When you download a copy of my slides, you will see the major questions and what need to be done and what can be done. Next one, next one, next one. These are all different policies in different countries. Next one, next one, next one, next, 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 next. Okay, so yeah, basically what we are doing now is using biotechnology methods, which was articulated by other speakers as well as posters. I've seen some of you are already doing research in converting, for example, food waste or other sources and producing biomaterials like chitosan, PHB, PHA, and so on. So those are exactly ways of producing sustainable biomedical materials. Next one. And people also can engineer new sustainable medical materials from the molecular level. You can synthesize them differently. So that's an example. Next one. Next one. Next, 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 next. So I just going to summarize in 2 minutes. Previously, we used to teach materials on the left side, which is basically microstructure, properties, and cost of the material. But now we're changing our education model. On the right side, we are looking at the social cost, health impact, environmental impact of materials, in addition to their microstructure, performance, and processing, which is the traditional way of teaching materials to the engineers and scientists. So there's a fundamental change that's happening in most advanced forward-looking universities. Next one. So in conclusion, essentially there's lots of problems humanity is facing, which are of course majority of them are human caused. Next one. The next one. So I just wanted to summarize in a way. I strongly believe that biomaterials, even though they're there for 10,000 years, from now onwards there is an opportunity to start thinking about intelligent biomaterials so that we can deal with problems associated with the human health care, primarily mental health. So definitely we need intelligent biomaterials. Next one. Next one. Yeah. And this is totally unrelated, but because of the carbon neutrality pledges by the countries as well as companies, biomaterials, which is a $100 billion industry, slowly have to look at sustainable biomedical materials. And again, this is a direction where we believe a lot of research, R&D will happen, and very soon, maybe next 10, 20 years time, we will see sustainable biomedical materials more commonly used in healthcare sector. Next one. This is just my own slide because I work on nanofibers and we look at how we make them sustainable and intelligent. If you are interested in nanofiber-based research, you would be interested in that slide. Next slide. So we have written some books in these areas and you are welcome to read those books. Our other books are also available. The idea is I want to impress upon brain power here as well as all the audience on the internet that intelligent biomaterials, sustainable biomedical materials are emerging areas and it's worth investing our time and effort. Again, I like to say thank you for your time and opportunity for me to engage you. And I hope I could convince you at least 0.1% is worth trying this area. Thank you.
Give a round of applause to Professor Siram. I'm afraid that we have just 6 minutes to have questions and answer. I see one there. Okay, please come forward to the microphone there. Just in the middle. Yeah.
Hello, sir. Very informative and elaborative talk, although skipped very frequently. I am Riddhi Mahale. I am from India, IIT Kharagpur. And I also work on materials, bio-derived materials, where I prepare materials using different microbes. So I have one question regarding intelligent materials. Shall I go ahead?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So you mentioned using hydrogels as intelligent materials, where these hydrogels can be modified using any genetically engineering method, or they can be prepared or can be surface modified using any chemical based method. So what are your thoughts on utilizing hydrogels which are prepared biologically? Like we can use bacterially derived nanocellulose as hydrogel also, and they have higher possibility of being responsive to the environmental stimuli. So what are your thoughts about that?
Thank you for that question.
Yeah.
So yes, the cellulosic hydrogels.
Yes, sir.
And if you have the opportunity to look at how to modify the surface,
Yes,
functionalize the surface of these cellulosic substances, you could even get down to the nanocellulose as well.
yes,
And if you can add certain functionalities, and then you also imagine hydrogel is a three-dimensional structure.
yes, sir.
And how do you introduce cleavages between the cross-linkers or between the molecules, and then they trigger when they are in contact with a specific external stimuli. And if you can imagine an overall system,
Yes, sir.
if you can come up with a proof of concept, I think you would be in the right direction.
Yes.
After that, I think what you want to do is there is a lot of research is already happening on cellulosic materials. You would want to look at what are the cutting edge ideas
Yes, sir.
not yet explored.
Yes, sir.
And I'm sure you are either a PhD student or a
Yeah, I'm just last year of my PhD.
so I think surprise yourself with an interesting question and give a shot.
Yeah.
And why not? Because to me, it's all about trying.
Yes, sir.
And when it works out, you can explain how it works, and then you go from there. I think you will have a good future. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the question.
Is there any more question? Okay, one more. Yeah. Please, the next one will be ready. Be ready yourself in the near to the microphone.
Yes, thank you very much for your excellent talk. I would like to know what is invisible material? Is it coming under the intelligent biomaterial or normal material? And how these research activities are going on with the invisible smart material, which is a very burning topic of today's research. So if you can focus, because I was just waiting for something on that, but you have not mentioned anything on that.
Yeah.
So that is why I'm a bit curious.
Thank you. So the question is, I'm repeating for the online audience so that they understand. The question is about the role of invisible materials with
Yes.
respect to the intelligent materials.
Yes.
As far as my understanding is concerned, invisible materials are designed to deal with the light, the way it interacts with the light. So if one could design the invisible materials, people are already doing some good progress. They're able to trick the light, and they're able to create that particular functionality. The question now is, how do we make it intelligent? Intelligence means that invisible material, if it can sense the situation, and it has a particular toolbox inside that it can make a certain response, then it becomes intelligent.
So in our childhood, we used to get this story from our grandparents that yes, there is a fairy tale, and so they are putting something, some dresses, and became invisible, and that type of story we used to hear in our childhood. So I want to know the reality of this particular thing as far as today's research on advanced material is concerned. So
yeah, so the invisible materials,
yes,
they are specifically fine-tuned to deal with the light, and you know, light has a wavelength as well as a different reflectivity based on the wavelengths, and that's pretty much where they're focused. Now the childhood stories where, you know, of course we like to believe in those stories,
yes,
where we can disappear and appear another place.
yes.
My view is if that materials can be spun into fabrics and people can wear them, perhaps they may become invisible. But what we know is we can do the color changing fabrics. So that's possible right now. Based on your mood and your own feelings, the garments can change their color. That's possible. But now moving from there to make it completely invisible as well as intelligent, well, I do not have a full knowledge on that one, but I think, well, I'm the guy highly optimistic. I would not want to discourage anybody. My strong belief is this one, I digress, is human beings do a lot of things.
Of course.
But the only reason humans survive is because on planet Earth, we generate knowledge, we accumulate knowledge, we transfer knowledge.
Of course.
If we do not do that, I doubt the humanity can thrive on planet Earth. See, in other words, generating human knowledge for the sake of human knowledge is already a noble thing to do. If anybody is actually in the process of doing it, I say, please do that. The reason is that's central for the human progress. So, well, will that lead to better outcomes? Will it lead to what the researcher is looking for? That depends on a situation. But any researcher, I fundamentally believe, that is a better thing than all other human beings, what they do. So I'm a little bit bullish about scientists. The reason is scientist doesn't mean they have a PhD. What it means is scientists are the people who apply their mind and brain and then develop some new knowledge.
Of course. I
that
totally
person
agree.
could be, he doesn't even have an education, doesn't matter. It's a way of thinking. And with that way of thinking, if they can create new knowledge, new solutions, that person is a scholar, a scientist. The question is that the better endeavor than anything else? My answer is yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm afraid we have to land from this 50-minute journey to the wonder of biomaterials world. So with this, please give a very warm applause to Professor Sriram. Thank you very much for your wonderful talk from the intelligent material to sustainable biomaterials. Yeah, I have to close this session. Thank you very much. And yeah. This is the end of this plenary sessions of today, but we have to come back. We have to return to this room for dinner at about in the next 1 and 15 minutes, but about 7 p.m. According to my, is that right? 7 p.m. Yeah, 7 p.m. So thank you very much for staying in this room until this end of this plenary session. Thank you very much, and please come back in the next 1 hour. Thank you. Give applause to all of us. Thank you very much.